We want to start by assuring all Ambazonians that your money is in safe hands, that no penny leaves the National Treasury unaccounted for. We want to talk about aid. What is aid?
I'll be receiving a very special guest into the house in the person of Barrister Tim. And as I told you, tomorrow, the 19th of January 2023, I shall be receiving Barrister Ghana, and we are all coming in here to talk and tell the Ambazonian people of our history. We are not coming in here to talk about any other thing that does not constitute to our history. And so we are coming in to tell you and talk to you about our history, and we crave your indulgence that you invite other Ambazonians who are out there and are willing to know about our history. Like I told you, when you know our history, where we are coming from to where we are now, you will never, by whatever criminal connection or satanic devices, agree to go under or stay with La Republique again. It will never happen if you know where you are coming from. So we are going into our history today, and as we go in, I want every Ambazonia to know that we are just telling you this history because our God has done it for us. And because He has done it, we want to let you know that all the struggles and the lies you are hearing from CRTV and other Cameroon media is a mirage. It's not for us, and it cannot work. So I want you to sit down quietly and enjoy yourself. Let's get this gentleman who is a seasoned servant of God to just give us some food for thought, for you to know that God Almighty knows your name. It's a marvelous thing. It's a wonderful thing. All right, let's go. Brother, I hope you wouldn't mind. Come in.
And you know my name. I give you glory. Abba Father, you know me. You know my name. Abba Father, you know me. You know my name. Abba Father, you know me. You know my name. You know my name more than the air. You know me. You know my name. I can see your hand in my life. Lord, I see your love upon me. Every time I look around, now you are the see. Every time I turn around, now you are the view. I did hear your voice in my heart. Lord, I feel your love over me. Every time I look around, now you are the sea. Every time I turn around, now you are the pillow. I'm a father, you know my name. Papa, you know me. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, our Father knows your name and knows the name of the Ambazonian people. And today, we are back here in our AMBA history to tell you what is going on now. I'm sure you have heard enough and so much about where we are coming from, but we have not ended. And some people are telling me, historian, you people are very monotonous. I say, yes, we are. Because if our history has been and is part of you, you will not do what you are doing. Yes, you will agree with us, and definitely you will be. You'll be a part of what we are doing. And because you are not, and because you have not understood, that's what we are saying. Because if you understand, we will not be repeating. And our repetition is a very clear sign that you have not understood. So let's get this. Thank you very much, Almighty God. There is no one like you. Greetings and welcome to our AMBA history with our beloved historian, Barrister Timothy. Can you go ahead and greet the people, and then
Yes,
we'll take off from there.
yeah, thank you, Pastor, once more for having me. We're here once more to deal with our history, with the hope that we'll learn something from the past in order to be better for the future. Once more, listeners, we're all free to criticize, we're free to give counter views, but facts, historical facts remain historical facts. They do not change, though the interpretation might change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barrister, for that brief introduction. Let me go ahead and ask you. This is the 7th year we have entered in this battle. I do not know if you have opportunity to listen to people at home who are talking on different social medias and televisions. If you are fortunate or if you have that opportunity, can you just tell us a little bit of what they are saying, if you have anything about that?
I think, although thousands of miles from home, I'm very, very close to home, to the villages and to the towns. I was a town dweller, but I lived most of the time in the village. If there's something I can assure you, is that we in diaspora, who are essentially educated, are fighting this war. We understand this war. But if you give the level of understanding 100%, I will tell you that we in diaspora understand the Southern Cameroon problem just 40%. The people on home front who have lived this history, they understand what it is all about. If each had had the opportunity to take a cutlass or a gun or a spear, they will fight better than all of us combined are fighting. So they know these things more than you and me. Our parents who lived it, they know what they've gone through. And when let Cardinal Tumi say 67% or 68% opted for independence, now that was he sampled the educated class. If he had gone back to the villagers, to our parents back home, he would have found out he would have had 97% of the people opting to leave this nonsense of reunion once and forever. And as of today, I guess, if that opportunity arose and it was to go by ballot, will be people living at home will vote almost 90% to go. The people who would make the difference by voting 5% to remain or 10% are us in the diaspora, are us the educated people who are benefited from jobs, who are benefited from appointments, who are benefited from the bribes. Your father in the village doesn't take any bribe. He has no opportunity to give bribe, to take. He only gives. He buys what he doesn't need to buy. He buys an identity card. He buys to enter a car and pay transport. He buys to go to the market and buy something. He gives bribe. And so the people back home are by far stronger in this struggle than you and me combined. That's my best assessment, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Barrister. Barrister, I had the opportunity of listening to Prime Media today, and some of your learned colleagues that are back at home, I'm sure that when they talk with some reservations, because the brutal regime, they know that it will come upon them with clouds, and they will be gone. And one of them succinctly talked so much, and I thought that he was going to strike the deal, and he ended up by saying federation. Barrister, this issue of federation, have we ever had federation since we were deceived into getting into union with La République du Cameroon? And do you think that the issue of federation will change anything from what it was from the beginning? Over to you.
Well, in my segment of 2 weeks ago, I said that there was never even any federation. The word federation was just put there as a camouflage. And I cited the so-called federal constitution to show there was nothing called federation in practice. And so, back to my colleague or whoever is speaking from the home front, they cannot speak better than that. Experience has shown that whoever is against or who doesn't speak the language of the oppressor, that is Yawande, you're going to go. And I cited again in my other show that As soon as the so-called 30th, 1st October came and passed, as late as February, I usually went and passed Ordinance number 62, which prohibited even the discussion of this form of state. If you did it, they will arrest you and send you to jail. It was not a free environment. They used that ordinance to harass people, to harass the frontiers, to harass the mourners, to harass the, the Dinkas. And in 1990, they purported to abolish that ordinance. But just 14 years after, they brought it back in the 2014 law on repressing rebellion, criticism against the state. And my friends and colleagues back home are faced with that. You cannot live there and don't speak their language and go free. To be objective, for example, why do you think they will take Abdul Karim to jail? What has he done? He's not even carrying arms like any of the fighters. But for simply say, well, Southern Cameroonians have a right to independence. Why do you think they will take Paul Aya, who was not even in the consortium? He was just sitting in the government office provided by Yaoundé, called Supreme Court, and sitting there. But because he stood for federation, because he voted against them, because he criticized them, he had to be taken to jail. And so there was never any federation. In fact, I mentioned that because the federal constitution that purported to implement the constitution, the federation, was not a federal constitution. It was never. There was no power reserved left for the states. And so, as a matter of principle, as a matter of law, there was no federation. Thank you.
As a matter of law and as a matter of fact, there was no federation. Ambazonians should understand that. And those who are on home front, we know that you are doing your best.
Give me a second.
Trying to
Give me
talk
1 second.
the truth to a limit. When you talk the truth, it comes to a point where you get to the limit of the truth that you can talk. We will plead with you to listen, and if you are called upon and you are not courageous enough to tell the truth, don't deceive the people, because you know very well that the La Republic does not know anything called federation, and it will never be implemented. Even if they tell you now, they have not killed 45,000 plus something people, burn homes and everything, for us to come back to what we're supposed to sit on the table and discuss. So what we are saying is that we want to sit down and see how we can divide as we were before the purportedly coming together. All right. With that said, Barrister, I want to come back to you. It is said that the custodians of a nation and the knowledge for the common people are the people that are voted into parliament. And we have heard the noise that La Republic is making. Do you think that they will attempt again to come over to Ambazonia with this their nonsense they call senators? Or is it only ending in La Republic to Cameroon?
First, you must understand what they call a senator means in the political development of so-called Cameroon. Who is a senator? What is the role of a senator? They actually have no role to play in the political events of the country. They are an institution created for the purpose of giving them money, for bribing them to support the system. And so they can organize 1,000 senatorial elections. That is not going to alter anything. They can organize 1,000 parliamentary elections. That is not going to alter anything. Yesterday, I watched a system. I watched Equinox, 8 p.m. And at the end of their news at 8 p.m., they do a review of the events. And something came up yesterday. The thing was, do they, now that they've called senatorial elections, without the reform of the electoral code as envisaged by MRC, what would they do? What interested me was that among the panelists was an MP for UDC. And they asked him, why is this not happening? This is Parliament, which is supposed to initiate laws. What did this man say, the parliamentarian, who is an active parliamentarian right now? He gave areas where he thought that they should have reformed the electoral code for any better elections. But nothing has been done. Why? They asked him. Because the president has not authorized it. This is a parliamentarian waiting for the president to authorize them to take action on any legislation in the country. And so get 1,000 senators, get 1,000 parliamentarians, do any type of elections. It's not going to change anything. And so bringing them back to us, yes, what they are trying to do now is a second election of senators. In other words, they run their first 5-year term out. Those who are going to be appointed as senators, what is their balance sheet? What is their balance sheet for the past 5 years that they were in Senate?
Barrister, are you saying appointed, or they say they are going to vote? You are talking of appointment.
No, they were appointed. Senators are appointed. Senators are appointed. There are supposed to be 100. Out of the 100, 30 are appointed by the president. Others are, in fact, sorry to say, they are appointed by the CPDM in their councils. They control all the councils. It's not a direct vote. They were not voted. They get the 7 senators from each region, they call it. The councils meet and appoint the 7 of them. Each region is supposed to give 10. And the president appoints the rest of the 30. So, but what is the case? What is their balance sheet for the past 5 years that they've been there? Zero balance sheet. Let us assume that we're all in one country called the Republic of Cameroon. This war has been going on for more than the senators were there. Let us call it a national crisis. What has the Senate done just to address the issue? Not even addressed, does not been addressed in the Senate even once. Instead, the other man, the other senator who was supposed to be there, who was there, one of us, who their voices frustration about the Senate not doing it, who they showed some support for the Anglophone cause. He was murdered. Senator Kemonde, he was murdered. In Bamanda, they have never even as much as heard any investigation as to his murder. So the senator meeting, zero. Zero. They are meant for giving people jobs. They exchange the jobs. You remember? Peter Mosonge was a member of the Senate. He was in the vice president of the Senate. When they found a more lucrative job for a bilingual commission, they removed him from the Senate. He removed him. I said, okay, you're no longer a senator. Go and become chairman of the whatever commission they call it there and get me a budget. That was a senator, number 2. And they promoted Tabitando, appointed him the vice. I'm dealing with the Senate. You have talked about the Senate. So what is the record of Mosonge as the vice president of the Senate for the time that he was there? What is the record of Tabetando for the time that he has been vice president of the Senate? I'm talking, these are Ambazonians who are dying.
Yeah.
They have not even mentioned it as even once in the Senate. So has the Senate any value? Zero value. Absolutely zero. Thank you.
Wow. Our history continues with a lot of betrayals and a lot of hypocrisy that is going on. Some of the people you have mentioned, they are older than the independence of La République du Cameroon. Barrister, can you tell us whether these people are very ignorant of what happened in 1961? And if they are not ignorant, what do you think is the major thing that they think about the Amazonian people from where they come from?
These people are not around. At the last outing we had here, I said that Yaoundé will not have succeeded in doing what they have done and continue to do if they did not find enablers, if they did not find blacklegs amongst ourselves. They used us. So it's not because they are ignorant. Now, and that will take me to where I wanted us to deal with today, whether there's some ignorance or not. You see, we cry of total assimilation. We've talked about federation. But let us even say there was a federation. It existed from 1st October 1961 to 20th May 1972, just about 10 years. And it officially died, even though it had never existed. It was totally wiped out by the so-called referendum of 1972. But the coming of the referendum of 1972 was not so sudden. It was well prepared to show that Ahidjo and his government never ever wanted a federation at all. They destabilized or destroyed all the institutions of British Southern Cameroons, formerly West Cameroon. To the point that by 1972, when they said the federation was dead, it had died long before it got there. They did not destroy it with an axe or with a cutlass. They destroyed it with human beings sitting there, pretending or acting as Southern Cameroonians. And let me take to it, which I said before. The purported federation that was supposed to start 1st of October was supposed to have a state of West Cameroon with a prime minister sitting there, elected by the people. There was nothing in the federal constitution, even though it was not the federal constitution, that said that the president in Yaoundé will appoint his personal representative to come and sit in Buea. But as soon as October came and passed, February came, the president appointed somebody he called his liaison officer in West Cameroon. I remained there for 2 months. I transformed the post of liaison officer to federal inspector, which I've addressed before, and named J. Singo, who remained there from 1962 to 1971 on the eve of the disparition of the so-called the state of West Cameroon. What was his job? His job was to do everything more than what the prime minister who was elected was supposed to do. He simply was put there to undercut or to undermine the president. Between that time, 1961, October, to 1972, in fact, very few federal laws were ever passed. Much of the legislation was by presidential decree. You find these things like taxes, how to deal with Douala Tico Port, they were all came out by decrees. And were they doing this thing because we didn't know? No, some of us were there, very learned men were there. Let us be reminded that in the first federal government from West Cameroon, the most powerful people we had there were educated people. Amongst them, E.T. Igwe. E.T. Igwe was one of the first lawyers. He was a lawyer. And they used him, I mentioned this before. They used him, he was in fact before 1961, he was the last speaker of the West Cameroon House of Assembly, Southern Cameroon House of Assembly. Wow. And so when they purportedly formed the federation, 1st October, these are people who benefited most. And Ahijo have been studying us. The two people who benefited most right there after the 1961 plebiscite, immediately. Let us recall that the federal constitution provided that there will be a federal House of Assembly. This federal House of Assembly was to be composed of 50 parliamentarians. Of the 50 parliamentarians, 10 were to come from the West Cameroon, and 40 others will come from East Cameroon by virtue of their so-called population. So our first parliamentarians who went there, the first 10 who were all nominated, who were appointed, included E.T. Igwe. They included S.T. Muna. They included A.N. Juade. In fact, they were members of the former West Cameroon government, parliament. And all these people went there who are those who benefited most. In that federal government, the only full minister in that federal government of 1962 was S.T. Muna. He was the Minister of Post and Telecommunication. That was the arm of the full portfolio as a minister. And the second was Deputy Minister of Justice. Who was he? Was E.T. Igwe. Igwe was a lawyer. These are the people who sat there and oversaw the destruction of our institutions. The other person who was put there was A.N. Juade, who was made Deputy Minister of Justice, the Minister of Finance. He never even went to Yaoundé. But these are the facts. Those are the people they used. And as you progress, you see what happened between 1961 and 1972. How these people positioned themselves. Notably, E.T. Igwe and S.T. Muna. They are the one who took us to the demise of Southern Cameroon. And Igwe lived in the government house from the day he went to Yaoundé till he died. If you know Yaoundé, that is how if you live Ngwakele, you are going down to CBA, you pass the former judge and Ministry of Research.
Yeah.
The house is to the right. He lived there until he died. He lived there for more than 30 years. They all took his corpse from that place. That's the government house. And so you soon found him with Mona exchanging places here and there, changing places in the federal government. And so it's not, to answer your question, it's not because the people were done. No. Yeah, and they will not have succeeded until they found enablers. They found people among ourselves who were prepared to be a sellout that they were going to use. And so they did that. Again, they were not just ignorant. Now, I don't think any of us here, many of us here don't have the intellectual acumen of A.N. Juade. That's what we honor him. A.N. Juade was just a good teacher. But he was a smart man. So they were not stupid. They were intelligent. And what happened to them was some of them were very egoistic. Among those egoistic people include people like Foncha. Foncha was an intelligent man, but he was egoistic. How do I come to this conclusion? When in 1961, they said they should appoint people to go to parliament, to the federal parliament, to appoint the 10. What did Foncha do? Foncha appointed his 10 because he was the leader of government. And they were all from parliament, from the West Cameroon parliament. But he did not even include anybody from the opposition. Remember that the West Cameroon parliament was 26. Foncha government had only 14. The opposition had 12. So what was the justice in promoting only KNDP people to go and sit in Yaoundé in the federal parliament? That was wrong. When he did that, it didn't go unnoticed. Mbili addressed it on the floor, said this is wrong. You cannot appoint only KNDP people to go to Yaoundé, whereas you only have a two-vote majority in the House. She have appointed other people from CPNC too. And as you find here, as the thing progressed, As Foncha was being squeezed to death, he still hung on the apron springs of Ahijo, whom he thought was his protector, until he kicked him down and replaced him with Muna. So that was being egoistic. For Muna, Muna was one of the very few who had smelled the walls of a university before he joined his Cameroon. They had gone to London, I think, and did some diploma in education. Itiwe was a lawyer. So these were not villagers. They were educated by every meaning of, by every standard of it. And so even if you go there, if you see what they gained from the so-called federal government, among all those old politicians who are all dead, whom will you point out to be the best? What have they left as history behind them? Nothing more than their families. Muna succeeded in getting what he got. He trained his children to be everywhere. He had 2 lawyers. He had doctors. The Foncha, have you seen the children of Foncha hanging anywhere? No. Have you seen the children of Ndere hanging anywhere? No. No. But they were in leadership. Iti Igwesa in Yaoundé, he trained his children to whatever he wanted. And some of them were medical doctors. So they are not being stupid. These are just selfish people. Thank you.
Thank you, Barrister. Somebody just wrote here that you are honorable barrister. That I wasn't wrong to call you honorable. Anyway, let's go ahead. Barrister, with all that, this is our history. To the best of your knowledge, at this very point in time, with what you have just underlined now, do you see the Ambazonian quest running the same vein that these selfish, egoistic people did to put us in this mess? Are you seeing signs of the same tragedy that is happening to Ambazonians in this our quest now?
No, I don't see it. I think, if anything, as I read everything positive to it. Shall we ever go back, for example, to the one-party system? Never, never, never. Take what is going on in the revolution right now. This infighting, Anu, Marian, that. Let us just call them political parties. Everybody is screaming for power, even though they are doing it the wrong way. But nobody is silencing them. They are free to say what they say. And so, going forward in Ambazonia, what happened to us in Yaoundé will never repeat itself. But to know why it happened in the first place, I said they needed enablers, but they needed structures to use against us, which structures will not exist in our system. They needed the one-party structure that would pass for politicians, but obey the will of the paymaster general. I just give you the example how when it came to appointing people to go to the Federal Assembly, 10 from West Cameroon. Remember that in East Cameroon, there was only one party, the UC. So they didn't have any problem. In West Cameroon, what? Multipartyism. When Foncha appointed only his people, people started criticizing. And that is what led us to what it is. Why was Ahijo ruling by decree between 1961 October to 1970? Why was he doing it by decree? The Constitution allowed him to do that because, as I said it last time, when East Cameroon got independence on the 1st of January 1960, there was no constitution, there was no election. Ahijo was just put there. And you had to make these decrees to become law. It's written in their constitution that presidential decrees shall become law and ordinances. And so you needed these things. For example, where in the West Cameroon government did we sit? Remember that before we joined this book, what a currency. We're using the pound sterling. How did the pound sterling cease to be our legal tender? As early as 1962, April, Ahijah took a decree and said the pound sterling is finished. You use the franc. And people were running over that trying to change the money. They didn't even know what it meant. I remember my late father was a little bit big. My late father had a saving of, say, 50 pounds. He didn't know where to go and change this thing. He didn't know what it meant. But my brother, who was the teacher, had to go and change the money. Remember who campaigned for the plebiscite, for the referendum, for the plebiscite. They took the money, they were changing the money, 692 francs per pound. But that's not the issue. The issue is who authorized Ahijah to abolish our currency. This thing should have passed through Parliament. It didn't pass through Parliament. So those institutions of ruling by decree will no longer exist. At least we are laying the foundation. We have right here what we call the interim government that was set up 30th of October 2017. At least they have the basic elements of to avoid dictatorship, to avoid decrees. They put in what they call at the time Restoration Council that was transformed into an interim House of Representatives. So they did not just leave whoever was the president to sit there and make decrees and other people in Boyo to go and fight in Meme or leave Meme to go and fight in Dian. No, that is not what happened. Again, fast forward, they needed those structures. Ahijah appointed these people. And then the first presidential parliamentary elections to the National Assembly, to the Federal National Assembly, took place in 1964. By 1964, we still had all these parties in West Cameroon. But Ahijah imposed there had to be on a list system. He will produce a list of 40 people from his East Cameroon under UGC. And Frontier was the leader in West Cameroon, was produced on a list. He did not allow people in West Cameroon to campaign. So there had to be a list. And Frontier made his list. CPNC, that was in the opposition, made a list. And of course, Frontier list that was in the majority won. But we had never known about a list system before. So they laid this situation to get 10 parliamentarians to join the majority 40 over there. They wanted to do what they wanted to do, and they did it and continued doing it until 1972, when they purportedly passed a law abolishing the constitution. So, to answer your question, that will never happen when it comes to Ambazonia of tomorrow.
Once again, thank you, Barrister. You are telling us that our history, the AMBA history, which is going under the restoration of the government of the people you have just mentioned there, is taking back its position, in the sense that right now we have had, and we had the Restoration Council, we had the interim constitution, and what the defunct Restoration Council chairman was doing was exactly the dictatorialship of Madu Ahijah, trying to put away everything constitution and go into disorganization and do things at his own volition. Don't you see, that was a kind of the La Republique kind of regime, where constitution is not regarded. Even if they don't know how to read the constitution, there are people who have studied enough to be able to read and interpret the constitution. Do you think that the steps the president of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, Dr. Samuel, took to make sure that that thing is replaced by the interim House of Representative is a right way of the democracy we had in the 1950s before 1960 61, where Ahijo came in with all this dictatorship. And are you thinking, or are you saying that the method which the defunct, I don't like to call their names in some cases, I mean, when Komita stood up and became the kingmaker and became the king and became everything, was he completely going out of the interim constitution, or was he trying to institute the La Republique type of governance where you discard every institution of the country and you bring in what you have in your mind and what you have as your own idea?
Yeah, I answer the question, but let me make a correction. The transformation or replacement of the Restoration Council by the interim House of Representatives was not done by President Sako. Nah, President Sako did not issue a decree to do that. The replacement came out of the Washington, D.C. conclave that embodied a General Assembly of all Ambazonians. They chose to replace it officially because they are the general body, they can amend the Constitution. So that Restoration Council was abolished, not by President Sako, but by the Washington, D.C. conclave. Yes. So that's a mistake I wanted to correct. Going forward then, if you look at the old Restoration Council, the defunct Restoration Council, it was a matter of people almost like what was in Southern California, people with personal greed and people who did not understand anything, just nothing. I would think that, this is my opinion, Kometa had no idea about constitutionality, but he was infected and still infected with the idea of ego or being relevant. That's why because how did Kometa got there? Kometa got there when the earlier Restoration Council was represented by groups, was representative of groups and regions. So he went in there not representing anybody other than the SCNC. The SCNC, or Europe, where Sama and the rest are supposed to be representing, are not different from if you are in SCNC or if you are in Europe, you are in Japan. Before being in Japan, before being in India, before being in Belgium, you belong to an LGA, you belong to a county back home. So once Berlin said, look, the Restoration Council at the time should be a compilation of counties and LGAs. The raison d'etre for having somebody represent a region or represent a group called SCNC ceased to exist. If Komota, for example, who comes from God Kotunja, I'm told, if he was a popular guy, the God Kotunja County would send him to the damn house. If whoever, Sama, if he was an important guy, Mezam, his county, should send him there. So what people in the Restoration Council, some of them knew a lot of things, but they wanted to remain relevant, and they still want to remain relevant. I asked this question many times before. The interim constitution provided for a president, but the interim constitution, before providing for a president and saying this and left and right and the Restoration Council, the conclave, the Zaria conclave, the fourth conclave, had created a government and named the president of that interim government called Sisiku Ayoktabe. It was in the Resolution 34. There was no parliament, there was no constitution there. So what will you say reading that document? When they put him there on the 30th, they said the interim government is created today, led by Sisiku Ayoktabe. They didn't say how long Sisiku Ayoktabe was going to remain there. So where did these people come out with the limits, with the term limits? If anybody came in after Ayoktabe, like he was abducted, the man was continuing that term. And that's why the Constitution came and said, okay, we're not going to deal with Ayuktabi being there or not. We'll continue what we have until we get to Boya. By the time we get to Boya, maybe some of us are dead, but those who get to Boya, we'll have 3 years to organize elections. They're shooting in black and white.
Right.
And so you find these people whose importance was whose view in the so-called Restoration Council was just to be relevant. They wanted also to be heard. Otherwise, I've asked them, on what basis did they think? Let me just give them credit for thinking. On what basis did they think that they will give Sako 2 years presidency? The very same Restoration Council will give Marianta 6 months. The very same Restoration Council will give Anu, I don't know how many years. So what is the basis? The only basis is to be sure that, well, we did something. We are putting precedents. We are conducting elections without even knowing what they are doing. That's a fact. And so that thing will never happen again. That thing will never happen again. We are laying the foundation, which I believe, hopefully, is going to be good for Ambazonia. Ego must follow the law. Importance must follow the law. I remember quoting this man. This man was one of the first people who was named to go to the Federal House. Mr. Samofo. He didn't know how to speak any good English. But he could stand there and say, this is Shamofo. He was one of the 10 he represented. He was not smaller than Muna or Danjua. Where he took the floor in the House of Assembly, he was an MP. So this nonsense of people wanting relevance with their book, whatever thing they have, with their profession, would not exist in Ambazonia. Your relevance will be on your products. Produce something good, you'll be honored for that. They will even name it after you. Dig a good street and they'll name it Funcha Street. Be a big hotel and they'll call it Mona Hotel. And so on and so forth.
Barrister, sincerely speaking, I do not know how to thank some Ambazonians like you who are living witnesses to our formal government that has been restored. And today, we are putting emphasis on going back to that rule of the law, which has no respect for anybody who will disrespect the law. And I may not want to go ahead asking questions like people like, anyway, you have just given a bit of what happened, because people like Komita who don't know the Constitution, for them to come in and be working on behalf of Ambazonia while there's a Constitution and they put the Constitution aside and begin to play their games is very painful. It's just like taking us back to La Republique du Cameroon. But anyway, thank you very much. The correction you just made is I purposely asked that question if President Sako is the one who decided to defunct the Restoration Council. And what I needed to hear from you and for Ambazonian people to hear is that it was not Dr. Sako who canceled or stopped the interim house, but it was the meeting you people who held in Washington, D.C., which is the government of the people, by the people. Thank you so very much for that very sensitive point that you caught it and then you came out to make that wonderful correction. Thank you very much. Ambazonians, I want to let you know that somebody called me from the Netherlands or wherever he is and said that we should stop this AMBA history. We should talk about the war and talk about feeding the poor and talk about, I say, how will it, if we stop talking about AMBA history, how will it help the war to stop and so on? But meanwhile, in this educative aspect, I've heard some people write up here that please continue to educate them patiently and in truth, because many people don't want the truth to be told. Barrister, maybe the last intervention for you to tell the Ambazonian people what the interim government is building now. We are not building a social system for ourselves, and that's why even at this war period, the interim government has on several occasions sent out auditors, and some of them who don't want to go by the rule of the law have jumped out. And when they jump out, they start pointing fingers and saying a lot of things that are irrelevant. Now, Barrister, tell us, 2023 has come. A few months ago, I don't know how many months to almost a year, when some people went out there, stopped the fighters from fighting, turned around and pointed a finger that is President Sako, who is doing nothing, and said all kinds of things. And on the 31st of December, President Sako came up and told the people of Ambazonia, whether with one or two people, we are going to go to get our land free for us. Now, these people who shouted and told everybody that they can do better, can you tell us where they are now in our AMBA history? Because I know that you are following these things up very carefully and consciously and cautiously as one of the elites, the real elite of the Ambazonian people. Over to you, sir.
I've said that, you see, revolutions always have sellouts, without which the enemy will not be able to fight you. What has happened to us has been a learning curve, and I'm sure we have learned a lot from it. The people, this struggle, whatever thing happened the last 1 year, has affected us, but it's also a place to learn something. I've always said this. I'm from the BLM, for example. In the 2017, 2018, there was no county stronger than the BLM. The Field Marshal, the Red Dragon, they fought. But this struggle has brought an impact on them. Not because the people are no longer there. Someone asked, okay, Field Marshal, let us say he's dead. If he died, did he carry the weapons and die with them? Well, the weapons that were bought for so many millions. You took them to his grave? Why are they not fighting? If he had died in a regular way, in a regular struggle, if he had not been brought down by the enablers, the remnants of his successors would have continued the battle. But before they killed Field Marshal finally, or before he died, the enablers successfully destroyed the county by trying to set up their own counties, their own LGAs, which until today are not functional. So how are you going to organize? Do you go organizing these people by going to take them from their houses? They were volunteers. And so they have not done themselves any good. Because by thinking that they were destroying Sako, they were destroying the branches, the roots of the tree that sustained the revolution. And now they are unable to put new branches on a fallen tree. They are able to put roots on anything. The interim government, as it is, that will not be led by President Sako, has survived, were put in different structures to continue the job from where they ended. The Restoration Council, for example, in our own eyes, is no longer existent. They may dispute that. What can they say is their achievement since this nonsense of annual merit? What is the achievement of Restoration Council ever since? Nothing.
The achievement is
We
talking.
don't see any contribution from them. So they're dead. People die gradually. Some people die suddenly by accident. Some people take time to die. But death is not that you must be buried. You cease to be relevant if you're no longer doing the relevant things. And so do we expect all the years? Shall we survive? I think we shall survive. And I think we are surviving.
Yes.
If we were not surviving, CDN, Toronto would have been a success a year today. We have not found the resolution of CDN, Toronto. If we were not succeeding, the Canadian talks that were sold out by our friends, our brothers and sisters of all groups who were in Toronto, who were in Canada, they would have produced results. As of today, we find people running away from it. The very people who stood there to sell it, they're escaping from it. So what are they leaving? What is left standing after all those failures? Is the people who opposed it. And what are those who opposed it? Me and you, under one leadership of the interim government, under Sako, under Dr. Sako. And so we'll find them crumbling after the other. What is the record of achievement of Marianta for her 6 months tenure of office? 0. Now today, by the Restoration Council, she's history. She's no longer the president. But what will she write in her achievement as the president of Ambazonia? 0. The only thing she can record is that they stole some money from the treasury. And she doesn't even know what happened to it. It didn't account to her. As of today, what's the achievement of Mr. Anu as the president? We'll call him comrade. 2 achievements. The fact that he wrote to Canada and said, okay, can't give us a plebiscite, a referendum. That's all you know he did, which he never gave him anyway. The fact that he invited somebody to come and talk demoralization and so on and so on, an expert teaching on how to demoralize our people. Has that achieved anything? 0. So, has the struggle died now? If you are at least giving a listening ear to even after deceiving them, they would have given this referendum you asked for. So, okay, you people want a referendum, we're giving you. They didn't even give it, so that point is mute. They did not refuse to give it because we of the IG refused it now. They refused to give it because they will not give him. And so on and so forth. So, again, summary, we're not going to succeed without hurdles on the road. But we have to beat the hurdles and continue. And let me end here. I was saying that before you are the colonizers, they studied us. They put all the tools in place to destroy Southern Cameroon. And they thought they had destroyed Southern Cameroon after 10 years. Well, what do you think about it today? In 1964-65, I usually realized that this democracy in West Cameroon was going to be a threat to him, to his structure. What did he do? He came out with the idea of one party. He had one party in East Cameroon. In West Cameroon, we had the CUC, we had the KNDP, we had the CPNC, 3 or 4 parties. He brought it together and said, okay, let's all merge and form one party called the CNU. And what did he do? He deceived them. There were to be 30 delegates to sit down and form that thing. How many of them were from West Cameroon or Ambazonia? The Frontier whole government gave only 4 people. CPDM, CPNC of Indele gave 2. CUC of ST Muna gave 2. So of the 30 delegates that were sitting down to form the CNU, there were less than 10 Ambazonians there. And they formed it. As soon as it was formed, he used it to destabilize the government of Jua by saying that, well, this election in 1964, we have won, but we have won as CNU. And then they appointed Jua, they dismissed Jua under that election and appointed Muna, made him prime minister at the same time vice president. Yes, that was in 1967. This is us 2023. Did that succeed? It did not succeed. The Munas who were doing all that history, they're all dead. They were used, but they did not use us. As I said before, the bulk of our boys fighting on the ground. I don't imagine any of them was born in 1960, not even in 1970. They are very young, but they have learned to carry the anger. They have read these books. These are all in writing. And they have asked themselves, how do you treat my father like that? How do we treat our grandparents like this? Why were you so inhuman? And they've decided to fight. After treating us like that, they will not even let us sleep. They will follow you to your bedroom and beat you up. They follow you to your farm and take your wife. They will follow you to your house and do whatever thing they wanted to do. And this has aroused the anger. This has shown the inner bearings of this nonsense called Cameroon. Shall we be part of it anymore? At least not with this new generation and the one to come. So I think that is where we are. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Barrister. We will continue to talk our history because there are so many people, some of them know the history and some do not know. I want to refresh their memories so that they should understand that whatever stringent methods we are taking, it is the DNA that is working in the life of an average real Ambazonian. Because an Ambazonian is a man of the law, a man of honesty, a man of sincerity, a man that will not want to go left or right. When I looked into some social media reports about some of the people who have stolen milliards from La Republic of Cameroon, I have not seen, even though some Ambazonians have been bought over, some of them slave boys, out of the first 20, I have not seen one Ambazonian in the midst of those who have stolen the money that they have stolen, if the report is true. But even if there is an Ambazonian amongst them, I will tell you that that Ambazonian has mixed blood. Either is married to one Ewondo or married to somebody from Paul Bia's village, because that's the DNA that makes, and two shall become one when they interrelate. So what I want to say to Ambazonians, we will go by our constitution. For now, we are going by our interim constitution, and the decision that was taken in Washington to make it interim House of Representative, which perfectly matches the name because our country was restored on the 1st of October 2017. And so having a council that is talk about restoring, I don't know what they were about to restore again. So that was kudos to that conference. And we are looking for more conferences and more sitting down for innovations and strategies to implement and make sure that the Constitution is obeyed as it was in the days of Endele, Jongo Foncha, and Gumjua, even though at that time some little things were coming in. Barrister, our time is up, but I just want to quickly beg these few minutes for you to comment on a thought that came into me concerning the plight of the Ambazonian people. Now, as you rightly related in the history of Ahidjo's systematic pulling down our judicial system, that is the law of our land and the proceedings of our land, I came to look into it to see that when they pretended that we were coming to be one, meanwhile they had the agenda of assimilation. In that 1961 to 1972, they tested the grounds and saw that whatever they were doing, our people were buying. In 1962, they said we are now united. I felt that that particular period upwards was for them to uproot everything that was an infrastructure of ours and completely devastate us. Then 1984, if you calculate it, it's almost 12 years. Paul Biya came in now and reverted to their name of Republic of Cameroon, meaning that we have completely been swallowed and we have no place. And now all those Ambazonians who are still hanging in La Republic of Cameroon, they forget to know this political trick from France and La Republic of Cameroon. What can you comment on this, my thought of what they did to us? And then when you comment on that, you'll be giving us your closing remarks, and then we quit for today till next week when we shall be coming back. Over to you if you have something to say, sir.
Well, I think in one of my episodes, I said this. I said the best thing that we ever had in this revolution going forward from 2016 was the setting of this structure called the interim government. And the interim government is a big name. It
I
encompasses a
remember.
lot.
Yeah.
You see, it's not enough for you to come and watch AMBA history. It's just one of the several programs going on that is very, very educational. There are other programs that I would encourage everybody to watch, which are all under the IG, under the interim government. Go watch the Horizon, which is presented by women. You will learn a lot from that program.
Right.
Go watch, listen to the AMBA prayers. I don't know what to call it. They are praying to God, but there's a lot of literature in what they say. So there's a lot we can learn from these structures. But above all, know that this thing that you are learning now on this platform or the Horizon or any other one, this is 2023. Nothing goes out for nothing. Everything is money. Go register with your LGA. During the Matip to Boya thing, so many people called me. Oh, they've chopped money. The other question I always ask is, did you contribute? If you had contributed, you would have a receipt. Ask the guy who gave you the receipt, where is the money? You will get a better explanation. You know, on social media, oh, they stole the money. How much of that money was yours? If you contributed something, the people who took your money are accountable to you. They're not accountable to social media. And so if you contribute your money to your county and they're stealing the money in the county, you have the right to raise a finger and say, hey, that man, the treasurer, has stolen the money. That man took $1 million. They go and give cutlasses. They go and give spears. They go and give bread. He never gave. That guy is there, you answer. But to be a social media general, social media colonel, is not fighting the war. And above all, educate yourself. What we put here, go and watch something there. There's something called ethics, which was established under the IG. They have very educative programs that will make you realize that where they took us was the wrong place. Where we are heading to is a better future. So go to ABC. There's a lot there. But again, it's not all free. A $10, a $5, a $20 a month would add to something. As we say in the country talk, suffer, cash monkey. So that is where we are. We are not going to repeat the errors of our forebears. That's why we do this history. We do tomorrow. Repeat what Mona did to bring down commando.
I will not allow anybody to repeat it in our
do
time.
what ETA did to bring down me or to bring down somebody else. Just because I want to live in a government house for life? No. We should learn that. And to say, like the religious people say, all those earthly things will come to pass. Yes, ETA will live in that house until he died. But he died. He's no longer there. He didn't even pass it over to his children. The only thing he could have passed over to his children that would have lived forever is if you had constructed a highway to Mount Fair where he came from, people would still be driving on that road. If you had built a university there, people would still be going to that school. We always heard stories like St. Joseph's College. Who was St. Joseph? Who know who built that college? But we still pay fees and struggle to go there. Ballet College and all those institutions, they were put up by human beings. They remain the relic of their own history. Not the money that is cheap to go and sleep with women, to go and drink beer, to go and eat soya. These are temporal things. Dead people don't eat. Dead people don't drink. Dead people don't fly in planes. So all those things will come to pass. If Muna, in spite of all his viciousness, he died without even the 20-kilometer road from Bamda town to Mbengwi. So where is his own relic? That he left his children? Yes, sure, they gave him a good burial. So what does Mbengui man think about him? That he died? That he was a speaker for centuries? He was president? He was vice president? And so what? And so what? What would the Mbengui man, Bomo man, remember him for? Historically, he left nothing there. And so let us cease to be over centralistic to ourselves. Let us know that we have a future. Let us know that, like we cry all these children killed in Garbo, the children killed in Boy. It could have been your own child. It could have been mine. The children of the world are children of the world. You are a man of the world. Those children fighting for Ambazona dying. If they are dying in Kumbo, they are not dying for Kumbo. Because Ambazona will not be free without Kumbo. They are not dying go Kutinja because they want to save go Kutinja. No, they're saving Ambazonia. And so I will fly your flag in Menji. I will fly your flag in Bengui, even though you died in Dop. So let us have this idea of community, because as you say in our content talk, 5 fingers tie the bundle, not one. And the bundle is a collective of everybody, of everything that we have together. We're all in one bundle, the bundle of Ambazonians. We will succeed or fail together. But since we cannot fail, we will succeed together. Forget about the distractions. People can go to Toronto 1 million times. They can go to Canada 1 million times. You can go and hold Grand National Dialogue 50 more times. It's not going to change anything. But always people will always be doing that, because by going there, they make themselves relevant. They get some money. What happened then? Congo sources ran away after taking chunks of money from Elisme and the rest. What happened then? Nambere ran away. Money is all vanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barrister. I think we come to the end of our program today with you, and I'm sure that Ambazonians out there and people around the world, I am very, very sure that you have learned of our history and you know where we are coming from. That as far as Ambazonia is concerned, we are not La Republic people that were trying to break away. No, we were a different nation, and we came to see if we could stay together, and it has not worked. And because it has not worked for the past 60 years plus, we decided to get out as we came in without any gunshot. But they came out with brutality because they felt that we are going to chicken out and then they will get everything that belongs to us. And unfortunately, we have noticed that even if La Republic gets everything that belongs to us, they will not even make the lives of their own people better, because with what they have already gathered from Ambazonia, we have not seen any good thing that they have done to the population. And worst of all, their oppressive language and system of government is what will not permit anybody to actually live or want to live on this planet Earth. But we are assuring Ambazonians with our history, as is being told by different people who have experienced and those who have had a foretaste of what happened in Ambazonia, that we are going back to where human life will be respected and where human life will become human life. That is why we come up with the AMBA history, to teach and to inform the people of Ambazonia in particular and the rest of the world. Please, if you are Ambazonia, wherever you are, join your LGA, get into your county, stop sitting on the fence. Those who went out to deceive, either by proxy from La Republique du Cameroon or by their selfishness, as we heard some of our forefathers who were so selfish that we went into where we went into. Yeah, you have tried and just failed. Please come back into the house. Let's go ahead and then get these criminals out of our land. Once again, thank you for listening to us today, and we hope to see you next week, Monday. Barrister, you are shaking your head. Do you want to say something more before we can finally go?
No. I've said
All
all
right, thank you very much. All right.
I've said all I needed to say for
All right.
today.
All right, thank you very much, Barrister. All right, people of Ambazonia, let's just get this Oto Sowoji, and then we call it quit for today. Oto Sowoji. I'm going to call one of my very good friends, but the Oto Sowoji is being interpreted right in the song, which says, Almighty God, all power belongs to you. You are almighty and you know everything. Let's just take it for a while and then we'll be gone.